This is a planes of the head, which I recommend to everybody. It's a great cast. It's made out of like plastic. And it's made, what's it called? Planesofthehead.com. And the reason why I put this triangle here is because when I talk about portraits and when I talk about starting a portrait, the triangle of the face is the most important. So when I talk about the triangle of the face, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying the eyes and the nose. These are the first shapes that I block in. The angle of the eyebrows, how much you see of both eyes tells you everything. Is it 3/4 straight on? Is the model looking up or down? So that's very important, because I'm just somebody who thinks that the features in a portrait are more important than the top of the hair or the chin or the background. Now, this is a plaster cast that I just did. I took it in color, and then what I did was I just desaturated it and I made it black and white so that we purely see value. And this particular photo explains all about when I talk about light direction. Now, light direction is incredibly important. So the light is coming from above and just a tad to the right. So now everything on the left side of the face is going to be more in shadow than the right. And the top of the head is going to be much lighter than the chin. So this is very important also, is light direction. And so the reason why I did this horizontal line is because as you're doing a portrait, you'll constantly see me or Scott in videos or from live putting our pencils or our brushes horizontally, and you start to see how one eye is slightly higher and one eye is slightly lower. And that's also the triangle of the face. You get this if one head is tilted, which means that everything has to go in the same alignment. So that means that the mouth is slightly, the right side is a little bit less. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about getting the horizontal plane, showing us, is the head tilted? This is something that is really important that I mention a lot. So 5 darks of the face. Now, the 5 darks of the face are these planes that create 3-dimension. The eye socket that goes interior, the shadow under the nose that shows dimension coming towards us, the upper lip that goes in, the underneath the cleft that makes the bottom lip come forward, the neck that goes back. So it's, it's forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. So if you can understand that it's creating these zigzags, and if you can like understand the 5 darks of the face, no matter what light source you have, if it's strong light source or if it's a soft light source, understanding this will help you so much. And this is what, you think about animators or people that do caricatures or people that can make up heads out of their imagination. This is what they understand, is that the whole eye socket. And this is pretty extreme, but I want you to really understand this, that the whole eye socket is everywhere from the brow ridge where the eyebrows are all the way through to where the muscle underneath the eye goes into the head before the cheek comes out. And so the white of the eye, the eyelashes, the lid where you put your makeup, all of that is within the shape so that nothing in here will be as bright as the forehead. So it's something that we have to observe and like relearn over and over and over again. And I always like to say that Scott is the aspirational, like I'm the one that kind of gets your foot in the door. And then hopefully through watching Scott paint and stuff, you see what can happen. Because a lot of times with like art classes, it's so much about blocking in. It's so much about like just basic stuff that sometimes we don't see where that basic stuff can take us. So here is the photograph. Okay, so now what I do is I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to go up to image. I'm going to go down to adjustments. And the best way to just take color away is the hue saturation and just desaturate it. Okay, so now color. Look at her lips too. Isn't that fascinating? Look at her cheeks. You guys notice too, you see how it'd be very hard not to make that red too dark. Okay, so now it's just black and white. Now I'm going to show you guys what it looks like to posterize. So I go back down up to image, adjustments, posterize. Okay, see how it defaults to 4. Now I'm just gonna do this. All right, so now we see the extreme shadows, and these gray areas are like the halftones. But remember, if we want to like, if we're kind of like not sure, our paintings tend to get too dark, and maybe we want to like start working with like cleaning up our lights, what would I do? Maybe I might go to adjustments, go to levels. Maybe I might make my face even lighter so it's not as dark. Lighten everything. This is what I do all the time to my photos. See, just lightening it makes me, maybe I'll paint brighter, right? Just going in here and lightening it. Now let's see what happens when I do posterize. You see how those shapes change? So that's what I want you to understand, that every time you lighten or darken a photo, this is a 4. So let's see what a 5 looks like. So it's up in this box. Let me just type 5 in. Okay, 6, 7. You see how every time I add a value, you get more of these bands, more information. Here's a 5, here's a 4, here's a 3. This is, see, that's extreme. So this could be a great lesson to say everything within this has to stay pretty light, even the sides of the nose. Because you see how some of this information around the cheek, sometimes we can get a little bit too dark here, but these transitions, these middle gray is what you would call a halftone. So it's easier to understand when you look at posterized.
I wanted to talk a little bit about some images that I came across, and I guess, just wanted to share them and tell you the backstories of them. So this is an image of the Strathmore pastel paper. Now, it was just a fluke that I got this because a lady who worked for Strathmore was volunteering or working for a conference that I was teaching and demoing for, and she happened to be assigned to me, kind of like as a helper. And so maybe a couple months later, she contacted me and said that they were looking to start putting art on their pads, and would I do it? Because I think that this pastel pad was relatively brand new. So I was like, okay, sure. And so they sent me a pad, and I think I got like $400 and maybe a few pads, in payment, which is fine. But the only thing that they wanted me to do, I could do anything I wanted. I remember, because they didn't like, I don't even think they knew my art at all. I think she was just like, she met me at this conference and just happened to be assigned to me. So it was sort of like coincidence. I just had to put a thistle. So they have a logo, a thistle logo that's right near that brand Strathmore, if you see it on their pads. And I just had to put it in somewhere. And so, I mean, as a portrait person, it's easiest to put it in jewelry, so like a necklace or an earring. And so I don't even think that earring looks like a thistle, but it was close enough, I guess. And anyways, the funny thing is that once I finished this, she says, well, do you know of any other artists that, I could recommend? And I was like, of course, my husband, because they didn't know Scott, they didn't know we were married, all this stuff, which is so funny. And then he got 2 pads, which I thought was really just crazy. I recommend him, and then he gets 2 pads. So you can see his drawings on the tan and the beige versions of their like 400 series paper. Anyway, so I just thought that would be something I would give the backstory of how I got this. And yeah, I really like the paper that Scott's pads are on. Now, this is a photograph of Scott painting right at the entrance of the Prado in Madrid. And he's painting that cathedral church up the hill. And so he's just so brave. Like, he'll literally stand there with just hundreds of people in line trying to get in the museum. And he won't flinch, which is, I love that about him. I do not have that bravery. Now, I think this is the same trip because we've been to Madrid a few times, and I must have found all these photos together. Now, I am painting in the Sorolla Museum, which was his home that he lived in not far from the Prado, actually. And Michelle Dunaway was with us, and she was just resting while I was painting. And here is a photo of the same place. I think Scott painted this at a different time. So many times when we would go to Madrid, we would go multiple times to the museum and house to visit and paint in the gardens. This is his painting that he did. I don't think the colors are perfect, but it at least gives you an idea of what he was doing. Now, the museum has been renovated many times, so I don't think that this looks like it used to, but this is me and Michelle Dunaway, and we were looking at all the little on-the-spot sketches that Sorolla would do. And I think they've moved them to their own specific little area of the museum. And it was just a place that I loved going, and it's fascinating that he would have orange and red walls. I mean, so rich and so vibrant. Now, I was very excited to meet Amaya Gerpide because she had lived in the U.S. and had gone to school and then moved back to Madrid. And so I definitely reached out to her because I absolutely loved her work. I mean, this is a long time ago. I'm trying to think, gosh, I don't even know. I wish I knew what year this was, but I'm going to estimate around, I don't know. I mean, 2012, 2014. I mean, somewhere, I don't know. And so she was so sweet, and we went and visited her, and she would tell us that, people in Madrid would eat dinner at like 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night. It was just common. And for me, I just said, Scott, we have to document this because I am such an early bird that going and eating dinner that late, or just even being out that late, was a huge deal to me. And she was very sweet to show us around. This is a photograph in the Airbnb that we were renting, and Michelle and Sarah Kidner from Canada and Sarah Watts, all amazing artists, had come to visit us. And so, yeah, I don't know who took this photo. I have no idea. This is us visiting Amaya's apartment. So she lived slightly north. I remember us having to take a train, and we were jet lagged. I know I was jet lagged. And we had kind of gone to her apartment because she'd invited us to draw with her class. I think she had a class on 2 nights a week where people would come to her apartment and she would teach. And Scott had enough energy, but I was just out. Like, I have a very hard time drawing or painting at night. So, but it was such a pleasure, and we were so happy that she invited us over. But I just remember being exhausted and I don't know. I hope I wasn't acting like an idiot, but I probably was. And this is our apartment again, and Amaya came to visit us. So, and this apartment was in the historic area of Madrid, right in the middle of everything. So, but it had a zillion stairs. I do remember that. It was like the top apartment on this very narrow, high building. This is me painting in that God, my mouth won't say it. Bien Retiro. Buen Preterio. Oh, I mean, I leave this stuff in just because it's ridiculous. I wish I had the ability to say words correctly. But we loved that park. It's a huge, beautiful park in the center of Madrid. This is Scott painting in Toledo. So Toledo is a city about a half-hour train ride out of Madrid. It's a historic kind of medieval town, and I mean, we got there and he just set up painting right away. I think he's probably doing a street scene with maybe an arch. And Michelle Dunaway and me, like idiots, walked around for probably like 2 hours with these heavy backpacks, never finding a place to paint, exhausting ourselves to where we finally just found Scott again and sat there and just watched. And unfortunately, we were just there for a day, right? So I've always vowed that I wanted to go back to Toledo. I mean, it's one of those things, I just tell myself, I mean, I want to go and just stay a few nights and just experience the city without having to carry a backpack. Now, this is Sarah Kidner and me, and this might be Seville, because Sarah and Kidner and Sarah Watts showed up in Madrid and stayed with us, and then we all went down to Seville together. And this might be Seville. I don't know where this is, a cloisters or some beautiful church, but I just have such great memories. Now, this is the center of Seville. Scott is painting the cathedral and the horses and carriages that would be ready for, tourists to come. This is his little painting. So cute. And this is Sarah Kidner and Sarah Watts painting just to the left of Scott, painting horses. Now, in Seville, I was so utterly happily surprised. They have these really wonderful park there also. And I mean, everything's in walking distance. And they have this tribute, this sculpture dedicated to a poet. And oh my God, we both painted there. And luckily there's like these benches there. You could literally just sit there and paint. I mean, I just remember walking through this park and coming across this tree with this beautiful sculpture of these like 3 women, and just going, where am I? How is this possible? Like, this is why Europe is so fantastic. This is Scott painting in Seville, just a few blocks from that park. And in Seville, they have flamenco dancing everywhere. They have a school for flamenco. They have all kinds of like theaters and things you can go to every single night. And this was a beautiful dancer that we just thought was incredible. And Scott just literally, after the performance, just asked her if she would pose for us. But she doesn't speak English. So he had the theater person who was selling the tickets ask her, and she was like, okay, which is shocking, right? We're strangers. But we were staying in this building, which was just a few blocks away in an apartment, and on the roof there was like this roof terrace that we could use. So we had her come and we painted her from life, and we also took all kinds of photos of her. She had a couple different outfits. I mean, she really brought it. She came in full makeup, and she had a couple different changes, and we actually filmed. I mean, this was before we knew what to do with videos, right? They were such a big deal, and I think we probably had an old-fashioned video camera, and we videoed Scott's portrait of her, and you can see that portrait in our painting, our video that we did, that we sell or is on Patreon or wherever our videos are. You can see it, and it's the one from Spain. And there's multiple video demonstrations in that video, but you can see start to finish him painting her. And gosh, we still want to do paintings from those photos that we did of her. I mean, I still think of her. I hope she's still successful and happy. Now, I wanted to show this because this is before we knew about videoing or taking photos. Or I think I was 28 or 29 in this photo, and this is in Montana for the Northwest Rendezvous show, which we used to go up every year in August, and they would force all the artists to do this paint out at the show. And you had to paint in front of the public for 2 hours and then literally have it be auctioned off in front of you. And I was full of fear and anxiety, and I just did not like painting in front of people. I didn't like painting fast like that and then trying to sell it. And so this memory is of me painting. I'm actually painting Kwang Ho. So he's standing in front of me painting, I don't know, a tree or another person. And I just decided that I was a little bit more confident. Not even, but I was just, I just felt better painting a person than trying to do a landscape. And they didn't really give you, you had to do it within a limited area because the public needed to watch you, right? So you couldn't go hide. But the funny thing is I literally still have those overalls. I just wore those a couple days ago. So it's so funny that how long clothes can last, right? But I made sure that Scott took a photo of me because I just hated doing this. And I thought, oh my gosh, this needs to be documented. Now, this was the very first studio that I rented in Winston-Salem in that arts building. And this is my mother, and she only posed for us once. And she's wearing a red kind of scarf, peasant outfit that we had bought in Prague. And Scott did an incredible painting of her. I wish we would have videoed it. I wish we would have known how to do all that stuff, back then. But I just wanted to show this. And maybe I'll try and find that painting that Scott did and show it in the future. Now here is Scott and me on our first trip to India, the Taj Mahal. Now we went to India for a month and just went through a kind of a tour company, and an Indian tour company where they did all of our hotels. And so we went all over Rajasthan for a month, and we were literally with the same driver, a young, sweet, shy guy that was from the northern mountains and came down for this job. It was a big deal for him. To be a driver or a guide there is a really, really great job. And so he drove us around for a whole month. And that was a very intense trip. Now, I came across this photo because early on, this was maybe the second studio I had in that building, and her name was Kip. And in the early days when we were hiring models, I was too intimidated to paint. And so I would only draw. And so for a few years, all I did was these kind of one-color pastel drawings. And the neat thing about this photo was I had found this photo, and I noticed, oh, Scott's painting Kip. And then I realized literally right above my head to the right of me was his painting. So even though this painting had been done so long ago, we just kept it in racks, right? And I brought it with us to a workshop at workshops in Yorkshire over the summer. And a student, a wonderful lady, Louisa, bought it. And so it's it's like, wow, I love the fact that photo showed up for me. And I just love the fact that it's such a beautiful study of a value, just pretty much a one color. But I've always loved this painting. So I'm so happy Louisa got it. And I'm happy I found that photo. Now this is, the same studio. I think it's the second studio I had, just showing kind of like, maybe once or twice a week, I would have friends come over and we would hire models. And this was a farmer that lived near us. So he just came and posed. And so you can see that's my little painting there on the right. So I was doing more of a head and hands, like a miniature, probably a 12 by 9 inch. But a lot of good times hanging out with friends and painting people together. And I just appreciate you sticking with me and kind of strolling down memory lane. Thanks.
Scott is doing his favorite thing. He is educating the public about solar panels. So this says budget truck, but we're getting a delivery, I think, from FedEx. But I swear to God, this is his favorite thing on earth, is literally discussing with people solar panels. Hey Scott, so I had asked people in one of the last artist diaries what they'd like to see, and someone said they'd like to, talk a little bit about experimenting, imagination, kind of abstraction in art, because so much of our work is using references and kind of being, I guess, one-to-one, meaning that our paintings look just like the photos. So I wanted to maybe talk about this big one, because in the photograph, did she have the horns or did you make them?
Let me show you the photograph. So this is Olivia, who is a wonderful model who poses a lot for our figure group, and we've known her forever. She does circus performing and fire dancing. She made these horns, which is, I took some pictures of her that I did from inside the studio, and then we went outside the studio, and I had her bring these horns, and then this was, I think, from
Did you
India.
have those wings?
And then these wings, I bought them
Off of
for
Amazon,
$25
yeah.
off Amazon. I have them in my shelf up there.
Yeah.
So this was kind of the inspiration for this one. So really, this photo I changed less than I do in a lot of photographs.
But there's many times where you make up horns. Like you'll.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just curious, like, but you see, like, you change them a lot.
I did another one of her that I made up the horns completely. And then these wings, you can see I made bigger. And then I added a scene. And I'm actually going to be painting in down here. I'm going to be painting the earth.
Oh.
The earth. And I'm going to have a little bird's nest, which I found a bird's nest from in the woods. And I took photographs of it. And I'm going to be painting the earth and a bird's nest in here as well. So you can see how I
mean,
interpreted
this painting has been through many, many, many incarnations.
Right.
Like, you probably have posted.
Originally, I had.
Wait, no. Let me just say, you posted along. Stay in the picture.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
you
I'm always trying to get out of
posted
the
probably last year sometime the original,
Right.
and it actually went out to a gallery
Right.
looking like that. And this painting is what, like 40 by 60? I mean, it's pretty big.
I think it is 40
And
by 60, yeah.
and you just painted it on one of those canvas that
Gallery wrapped, yeah.
gallery wrap. So you just painted the side. So you don't need to frame it.
My original version, you can. I can maybe I'll do a thing and I'll show pictures of it too. But originally, I had it more of a cool. This was a bluish.
Like a moon.
Moon, and I had these blue things, and then this was a bluish sort of background here, and so when I got it back from the gallery, as many times you do, you look at it and you just think, I think I could make this better. So I actually repainted a whole bunch of it. I repainted her face again, even though it probably doesn't look that different.
And she's larger than life size.
She's a little larger than life size, and then I changed this to warms back here, so these blues actually show up more than just being blue and blue. And so and I did other changes in here, and so now I'm going to add that as well. So it's funny how you.
From an outsider point of view, though,
things.
we've talked about this in the past. I can see influences from Gustav Klimt too, like the
definitely.
geometry, the patterns of the trees in the foreground. So it.
Well, and then the texture.
Because people might want to know like where these ideas come from, and so that's why I wanted to say that, because you're always having books open right next to your palette and stuff, and so having inspirational books open and playing with your images on Photoshop, and just wanted to say that like you did use a photo that she did have horns, she did have wings, you changed the shape of them, and sometimes, like you said, like you will do a painting and you think it's done, and sometimes months, years later, you just elaborate on it. So sometimes we do. It's a process. It's not like.
And a lot of times, sometimes the idea comes from you, and you ask the model to bring things. I asked her to bring horns, but I did other photographs of her in completely different outfits, and I did a couple paintings of her of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get that inspiration from the model, from your own imagination, and then you take it into different realms.
And hopefully with the close-ups, you can see the multiple layers of palette knife and your rubber tool. And this was probably just done on a very, very inexpensive cotton duck, right? Like probably a gesso gallery wrap.
Yeah, I don't know if I bought this one or if this is an old one. I think this is an old one that I had.
We actually, sometimes we receive canvases from artists, like if they're moving or, like they just can't store them anymore.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to show people that one of your experimentals and that it has changed drastically over time, in case you saw one of his earlier posts. Hi, Theo. Hi, baby. Hi, Fig.